Hello there. We're going to delve further into classes today, looking at a few other features of classes that we haven't talked about yet, mostly to do with what's called object-oriented principles. So the first of these is what's called encapsulation. We saw in the previous example of classes that we had to use the word public, otherwise variables won't actually show up. We can't actually access them. But you might want to have restrictions on some of these variables. For instance, you might want to make sure that your movie title is only allowed to be something with a capital letter. So what we're going to do in this first exercise is we're going to take this movie class and we're going to complete the getter and setter functions. These are also called accessor and mutator, and getter, as you might imagine, gets the variable, setter sets the variable, and these are going to be public, so anybody can use these functions. But the actual title of the movie is going to be private, so no one can directly modify the title. They need to use one of these functions if they want to change it or get to it. So let's take care of that. I'm just going to grab this code here, throw it into our compiler. Think. There we go. We won't do watch movie just yet. Now, in our movie class, get that out of here, we need to actually write the code for these functions. So we're going to have our get title is a string function, and it's not too complicated. It's just going to return the title. Set title is going to have a little bit of extra code to it. Now, set title needs to take a parameter, in this case a string. We'll include string just in case we need it. And first I want to actually check, is this a valid title for the film? So to do that, I need to say if is upper, I think it's like this. It might be a lowercase u. Yeah, lowercase u, there we go. If is upper t of 0. So remember, t of 0 is the first character of my string t for title. And I want to make sure that's a capital letter. And if it is, I'm going to set the title to be T. And if it's not the case, then I will output a message. I'll say there's a problem. Title must start with a capital letter. And let's all make sure this works. So in order to do that, we're going to make a new movie. So we're going to have my movie M. And now let's first off, to make sure that things aren't going to allow us to do things we're not supposed to do, let's see what happens if we try to set m.title to be Lord of the Rings. Now this should complain to me, I imagine. Oh, I forgot to using namespace std. Oh, right. So we don't need to have these anywhere because we have the actual code for them. Alternatively, if we like, we could write these functions outside of the class. So there's kind of two options we have here. Let me comment this out for the moment. One option is we can comment this out, and when we run this, everything should be fine. Alternatively, what we can do is we can leave this here, and then for these two functions, declare them outside of the movie class, like just in a generic spot in my code somewhere. I had an extra using namespace for some reason. But in here, in order to indicate that these functions, this should come from the movie class, I need to actually specify that. So in order to do so, I actually need to say movie : and this means that these two functions belong to the movie class. So movie's function set title, movie's function get title, and these should similarly do what they are supposed to do. So now doing m.title, it should complain to me. Yep, because title is private, so I'm not allowed to modify the title directly. If I want to modify the title, I need to use the set title function. So let's say I want to set the title to be Lord of the Rings. Well, if I do, the title must start with a capital letter. So it's not quite right. Lord of the Rings with a capital L, and we'll do a capital R for fun. This should do it perfectly fine. Now, I want to make sure this works. So to make sure it works, I'll output the title is m.getTitle function. Connection to server is lost. Well, that sucks. Make sure I save my code just in case. Maybe I'll try refreshing. There we go. And the title is Lord of the Rings. Great. There we go. Now, just for fun, we can also put this into Python Tutor. Take a look at what this looks like. Yeah. So, throw it in here. So you can see here kind of the same sort of issue that came up when we were talking about our strings. Python Tutor has some trouble representing objects. It's not very easy for it to actually show off what's in there. Now in this case, title is a string, so that's probably its own problem. Just for the sake of showing things off, let's go and make actually these all character pointers. No reason not to. Should work perfectly fine either way. Okay, so now our Python tutor is working perfectly fine because we're not using a string, we're using a title. So we set up our movie. We're going to try to set the title of our movie to be Lord of the Rings. And now notice that in our function here, movie set title, we actually have two parameters. We only wrote in one, char star t, but we actually have a second one, and it's called this. You may see the keyword this show up quite often when you're working with classes, and basically this, you can see, is actually just a pointer to the original object. Now, C++ is smart enough to know when I say title equals t, it means this title, but you also could specify it using this dot title, and this specifies that you're referring to the specific movie that's calling this code. I guess it's oh yeah, sorry. This is a pointer, so you have to use the arrow. Yeah. So that way when I do this arrow title equals t, it makes this title be this. And that's what I want. And my title is now Lord of the Rings. Fantastic. Okay, so I think that's the that wraps up the first exercise. Just for the sake of making people's lives easier for using Python Tutor, let's actually just set these to be character pointers. That way we can have things show up a little easier. Same with this. Should be the exact same. Some older versions of C++ might be angry at you for using this, in which case if you have to use a string, you can. But because I want to show off what this actually looks like in Python Tutor, character pointers tend to be a little easier to represent in the computer as opposed to the more complicated string class. Okay, so that's our first exercise. Move on to the second one. So exercise 2. Continuing, we're going to add two constructors to the movie class. One that requires no parameters and assigns a blank title, and one that requires the title. And then we'll add a deconstructor that prints a message. So one at a time, I suppose. Let's start with a constructor that requires no parameters and assigns a blank title. Okay, so for that, we're going to have a public constructor, which is going to be movie. Now I can define it in here if I want to, but I think I'll stick to defining it outside of here. So what is the syntax just again? It's easy for me to forget sometimes. Yeah, movie : movie. So note that I don't have to write in a separate return type here, and the reason is because it's assumed that since this function has the exact same name as the class itself, it's going to return an instance of that class. And so in this case, I will set the title to be equal to empty string, just so that there is a title. Note I don't have to return anything. I should just by default have the title assigned to a new object, and that will be given to anything trying to create a new movie. Now, to actually call this constructor, I can go down here and I can say movie M equals. I think I need to say new movie. I think movie might work. Let's try movie first, and we'll try to write the title before I set it to Lord of the Rings. Yeah, so there we go. It seems to work okay. So when we call our constructor, it builds a new movie, assigns the title an empty string. Just for fun, I can show you empty string if I wanted to really write it out. It's the first time it actually gives you an empty string, right? Oh, and this should be a character pointer as well. Oh yeah, I didn't do any of the character pointer changes, that's why. So let's actually not keep working in this compiler. I feel like it's gonna be easy for me to mix up the code. We'll go back to just working on our Python tutor so we can see everything going one step at a time. Okay, get out of here. Go back over here. We'll edit our code to make sure that it has our constructor. Movie M equals movie. When we visualize the execution, we'll actually be able to see it assigning the empty string this time. Oh, I forgot to, yep, so this error here, definition of implicitly declared movie. What this means is that I forgot to mention, which I needed to, inside of my class, that I have a constructor called movie. If you don't put this in, it's not going to know that it exists. Okay, so when I first make my movie, I call my movie constructor. Movie constructor assigns the title to be an empty string, and there it is. And we've seen the rest of the code work. So, okay, we got our first constructor. Now we want two. So in the exercise, it asks us to write a second constructor that requires the title. So let's do that. Now, we're going to have a second constructor. This one's going to have a title. And so we're going to copy this. But this time, there's going to be a parameter, which is the title. And we're going to assign that to here. Now this looks clearly like something crazy is going on here, right? What the heck is happening? We're trying to assign title to be title. Oh, this looks really scary. So one thing that might help you be more comfortable with this working is actually to just say this.title equals title. And that way you have a bit of comfort in knowing that there are two things working here. This should work correctly, even if I didn't write in this. But to make sure that it's very, very clear, we're going to use this.title equals title. You can put this here as well if you feel like it, but you don't have to. So to get this to run, well, actually this, oh yeah, I forgot, this should be the arrow. To make sure that this is working, let's actually set the title of our new movie to just be Lord of the Rings. Okay, so in our code, we call the constructor, but note, we're not calling the first constructor. Because we're passing a parameter, C++ knows I'm only referring to the constructor that actually has a parameter included in it. It won't go to the other one since there is a parameter that it has to deal with. And what does it say to do? Take the title and assign it to Lord of the Rings. There it is. All right, I have it. Okay. Last off, we want a deconstructor. So we'll have a, okay. Implement the is_equal friend function for movies. So this should consider a movie with the title Lord of the Rings and a movie with the title Lord of the Rings lowercase to be the same movie. So, okay, here's what we're going to do. First off, we need to be able to make a friend function. So to make a friend function, we're going to use something like this. And put that in our code. So, because it's a friend function, it's going to allow us to access the title from these variables m1 and m2, even though title is actually a private variable. So now we need to set up our function bool is equal movie m1, movie m2. Let's just make sure I declared this correctly. think it should be fine. Just double checking my syntax. Okay, syntax seems okay. Okay, now we don't want to return true. We want to return an actual answer. So we need to figure out how to make sure that these two titles are the same thing, and also not have to worry about if they are if the capitalization comes into play. So this isn't going to be too hard for us, I think. Now, we have to consider the fact that if we're working with character arrays, then we want to know how long is a character array, right? And I think what we want to do here is consider that the end of the string, the end of the character array is the little /O symbol. I guess just to get a copy of it, we'll run our code for a second. And so if we're iterating through this array of characters, we know we've reached the end when we reach this. So we're going to steal this because we want this character, which represents the end of the string. So my character end of string is this thing. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to go through each the movies, and if at some point we reach the end of string for one of them too soon, then obviously they're not the same because one of them has a longer title than the other one. Secondly, if we notice at any point that the character doesn't match, like even if we try to capitalize something, that they aren't the same, then we obviously need to consider that possibility as well. So let's start off by making sure these are the same length. So same length title, first of all. So int, so we're going to do a while loop for this. So int counter equals 0. And our loop is going to go while m1 counter is not equal to... all right, we'll make this a do while loop, actually, because we want to do this at least once. So do... and we're going to stop if the counter hits the end of the string. So just kind of thinking this process through. There's a few things we have to do because this is a surprisingly difficult piece of code that we're going to be writing here. Okay, so if we have not reached the end of the string, then we want to keep going. Now, if I guess we also have to be careful. There's a possibility that the title is empty, right? So let's make sure we don't have that possibility first. So before anything else, consider the empty titles. So if m1.title is the empty string, yeah. Then, or I guess empty string would be just this symbol, right? Would be nothing else. Yeah, and this would be m1.title 0 would be the empty string. Maybe I don't have to do this. Apologies for taking some time on this one, but I actually want to think through my solution a little bit. Sorry. Okay, so if it's an empty title, it'll be a character array that has one character in it, which is going to be this character. But I can account for that. I don't actually have to worry about doing a separate case, so I actually can leave this alone. And in fact, do I still want to make this a do while loop? Yeah, I think so. Well, maybe not. Let's try doing it as a while loop, and if things like explode along the way, we'll figure it out. Okay. As long as we have not reached the end of the string, we want to make sure that m1 and m2 have the same character. So if m1, and now I need to see if there is a way I can convert a lowercase character into an uppercase character. I think I can do that if I know exactly what the ASCII values are for the characters. So for ASCII the ASCII table, let's just take a look here. So, the value for capital A is 65. The value for lowercase a is 97. So presumably if I add 32 to any capital character, it should give me the lowercase character. That looks right. Yeah, if I add 32 to anything, we'll transfer it. So, if M1 counter is not equal to M2 counter, so first off, actually what I think I want to do is maybe I'll consider the possibility, like the different cases. So I have to consider, what if M1 has a capital letter? What if M2 has a capital letter? And what about the other one? So there's four scenarios that we can think about, right? We have M1 capital, M2 not, M1 capital, M2 capital, M1 not capital, M2 not, and M2 not, M2 capital, M1 not, M2 capital. So it's four different possibilities we have for these who would all be accepted if they're the same letter. So what I probably want to do is I want to take a look at the actual letters themselves, and if either of them are capital, then I want to just look at the lowercase version of that and match them. So here's what I'm going to do is so we'll assume that this is sort of our default, is we're hoping that they're not capital, and then we'll just compare them easily. But assuming that they are capital letters, so if M1, or here's what we're going to do. We want to compare two letters. So character letter 1 is going to be M1 counter. Character letter 2 is going to be M2 counter. If is upper letter 1, so if letter 1 is an uppercase character, I want to make it actually a lowercase. So then letter 1 plus equals 32. I think this will work. It might get mad at me, but we'll see when we try this out, if it gets angry. And then we'll do the same thing for letter 2. So this will convert any potential uppercase characters into lowercase characters. And now instead of comparing these, we can compare letter 1 is not equal to letter 2. Then we immediately return false, and we know that something has gone wrong. Otherwise, if they do match, then we want to keep going through our word, and so we'll do counter plus plus. And if we manage to escape this while loop, we reach the end of the string. Well, we got to be careful here, because we want to make sure that if one title ends before the other one, we have that accounted for as well. So let's think for a second. Counter goes up. So, at the very end, all I have to do now is, I know that I've reached the end of M1 counter, so I just have to return if the last character is the same as the other last character. I can't just return true, and so here's a reason that wouldn't work. Let's suppose that, for example, I have two movies. One of them is called Lord, with the capital D just for fun, and the other one's called Lord of the Rings. These are obviously not the same title. One of them has longer characters. But what will my code do, assuming that it does what I think it will? I'm going to start off. Obviously, the first character is not the empty string. Remember, these all are going to, or not empty string, the end characters. Remember, these both are going to end with this, the /0 at the end. My first letter is going to be L. The other one's going to be L. It'll convert the capital L into a smaller one, and then they should compare, and they should be the same, so I won't return false. I'll go on to the next character. I'll keep doing this until I hit here. Then this M1 has reached the end of the string. M2 has not. So I'll get a space here, but I get the end thing here. They don't match, but if they do match, then I've run into the end of both strings. It was actually a surprisingly complicated piece of code to write, but I think it's good to have these kinds of exercises in here. So now I'm assuming this part of the program will work. If it doesn't, I'll have to fix that. But let's double check it. So we're going to have movie M2 is just going to be Lord, nothing else. Oops. And now what I want to do is, are they the same? And we'll do is equal M2. I guess we'll call this M1 and M2 to keep the names consistent. Okay, let's see what explodes here. I'm sure something probably will go wrong. Maybe the adding. What's here? No match for operator type. Right, because I put M1 counter, but this should be M1 dot title. And this dot title should be the case for all of these. Title, 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 title. Okay. So we got the title from each movie. And let's compare. Interesting. Let me get away with it. So let's see if this works. So I got movie 1 is Lord of the Rings. Movie 2 is just Lord. So we see the fourth index refers to either end of string or empty string. Okay. Are they the same? So the end of string is EOS. I guess I never needed it, right? I didn't use the EOS. That's okay. The counter switch to 0. The first letter is L. The second letter is L. They are... we're going to convert both of them into lowercase, and they are the same. So we continue. O is the same. R is the same. D is the same. And now we hit space here, and we put end of character here. Those don't match. So this will return false, as it should. So are they the same as 0? 0 is false. Let's flip them around. Let's make M2 be Lord of the Rings and M1 be Lord. Actually, what we'll do is we'll make we'll do a correct option, Lord of the Rings. So these are, one is lowercase, one is all uppercase, and let's make sure it works. M2, M1. So 161 steps, but compare all the characters. Lord of the Rings. At the end, are they the same? Yes. Great. Okay. Now, so that was it. That was the exercise. We're almost done. We have one more to do, and then we will be finished. So I'll see you in a bit. Okay, last exercise. Overloading operators. So just for an example of what this should look like, I mean, this will work, I think, by default. If I just throw it in here. Where are we? Over here. I should be able to just throw this in. And then where I have is equal, I can instead just do M1 equals equals M2. Probably in parentheses. And I get the end. Did it not output? We're doing is equal. The 17th character should be the same, so it should be true. Oh, okay, so let's talk a bit about what just happened here. Inside of my, where is it? Inside of my is equal function, I end up actually passing some values here. Where is it? Inside of, So when I call is equal with M1 and M2, I'm not passing these by reference, I'm passing these by value, which means that I'm actually going to end up building two new movies that are identical to M1 and M2, but the code does some kind of silly things, which is once I've completed the comparison, I've run my is equal code, I have to close the is equal function, and as part of doing that, I have to delete the movies that I created extra copies of. So that's why you see something kind of weird happening here. If you look at the output, are they the same? Instead of one appearing right away, I have to delete the movie copies I made because I passed them to the other function, and then I get my one, and then I delete the other movies, which are the original M1 and M2. Or actually, no, it's those are more copies. Sorry, it's these two are the copies that were made for my equals comparison, my double equals. So I end up deleting 6 movies. This is a lot of movies to delete. But kind of neat to just see how it's working, right? And I don't think I would have caught that if not for the deconstructor code here that mentions what happens when I delete something. So good to know exactly what's going on when you run this code. Okay, so that's double equals. That's a friend function. It's a friend function, it's using the friend function is equal, and we're overloading the double equals operator. So now anytime I compare two movies, I know how that comparison works. It's basically, are they the same? Now, I also have to overload not equals. Turns out this is really easy, because not equals is just this not. Well, that's not too complicated. So I can say, are they different? Just skip to the end. Are they different? No, they are not different. They are the same. So that was easy. Okay. Overload the printing operator. So passing this to see out so we can actually see what happens when we output a movie. So that's a little trickier. So the return type of this is going to be ostream ampersand. We need this just to specify the type of see out. Turns out see out has a type. And so we want to have this as our return type. We want to have a parameter OS, and we want to direct our output to OS the same way we direct it to see out. And OS is a stream, it's an object that we can return. So we're going to return that when we're done pushing all of our information to OS. So let's see what that looks like. Okay. So first off, kind of similar idea here where we're going to overload an operator. This time instead of a boolean, it's going to be ostream ampersand as the type. The operator here is the arrows. We're only going to be outputting one movie, so we don't need two. But the first parameter is going to also be an ostream ampersand object called OS. And now our goal here is to return OS at the end. But before we do, we want to push into our stream all of the information we want to show off. So we're going to start off with movie with, I guess, a space. And then we'll push to it m1 dot title. Maybe you have to do get title. Yeah, because this is not a friend function, so I think I need to use get title here. I guess we can try title first and see if it gets angry at me, but I think it will be upset. So let's print out one of them. M1. So up to this point, we haven't been able to do this. Arrow, arrow, M1, just sending our M1 to see out. It hasn't worked. But the reason is because we didn't, until this point, have a function, where did I put it, which overloads the arrows operator that tells us exactly what it means to output a movie. And what we mean by outputting a movie, in this case, we've decided it's writing the word movie with a colon and a space, and then the title of it. Now, I think this might be angry at me because title is a private variable. Let's see if that's true. Yeah, title is private, so no good. If I want the title, I have to get it. So I can do, easily enough, get title. and let's give this a shot. So, step by step, we build our movies. Lord of the Rings, Lord of the Rings. We're going to output our M1 Lord of the Rings. So, some trouble representing what the OS stream looks like in the computer, but that's okay. We're going to send to it the word movie, and then we're going to send to it the title of the movie, which is Lord of the Rings, and we can see it all get output. And when we return OS, we say basically we're now done. And look at that, we've printed out movie Lord of the Rings when we tried to print out M1. And that's it. That wraps up everything that I wanted to cover today. So thanks for watching. I'd strongly recommend making your own class. Try something other than movies. Maybe you like music instead. Maybe you like video games. Maybe you like sports. Try making your own class and doing all of the things that we've done today. So for reference, we talked about accessors and mutators. Which of your variables are you going to make public, which are going to be private, and for the ones that are private, how are you going to change or access them? Make constructors and deconstructors for your class. Implement a friend function such as is_equal. That's a good one to do. Maybe two video games are the same if the first word is the same, even if they're like different subtitles or something, because one's an expansion, like World of Warcraft and World of Warcraft : The Burning Crusade, you could say are the same game maybe in this case, as an example. And then finally, overload an operator. Overload maybe double equals, not equals, and try the printing one too. These are good ones to try out. So give that a shot. I think if you only watch this video and don't try doing your own class from scratch, you're probably going to struggle a lot with the object-oriented stuff we cover in the class. So practice, practice, practice. It's always a good idea. So we'll see you in the next video. Take care.